Hey guys, welcome to or back to the James Bond Show. I'm your host Krazy Kajeevie, the bad boy of Bond with no fears, limits or substitutes. Welcome to this very first segment of Dissecting with the Director. Now, this is a segment that, as a passionate filmmaker or a former filmmaker, I wanted to show you guys how these scenes are put together, how James Bond scenes are put together. I want to show you the good stuff, the bad stuff, maybe give my idea of what I would have done as a director, and maybe explain to you what was going through the director's head and why he chose certain things. Now, for me to start off, I thought, there's so many great James Bond scenes. What can I start off with? And it came down to one. And I mean, the idea spawned for me watching Dr. No probably about 6 weeks ago. And I thought, wow, that scene where Bond we first see him with M is such a beautifully crafted scene. And I think maybe in ways that a lot of people either take for granted or don't quite see and realize the work, the structure and the idea that goes into it. So this is the scene that I wanted to start off with. So this is James Bond going in to meet his boss for the very first time. Let's have a quick look. Now I will be pausing at moments so I can point out what was done here. Let's have a look. Now straight away I just want to say, we can see the padding here on the door, the red leather padding, and you've got this like wood grain wall, you've got the old mahogany furniture. So already the production designers and the set decorators are pointing out to you that James Bond has entered the domain of someone very important. Bond is almost, there's a nervousness about him, and you can see in his movements and his hands. Now, when he was in Moneypenny's office before, there was flirting, there was mucking around, his back was straight, right? So this is little things you probably never realize, like masterclass between the director and Connery. So when Bond was with Moneypenny, his back was straight. When he was at the casino scene with Sylvia Trench, his back was straight. There was a nonchalance about him. This is the first time we really see there's almost a hunch in him. His eyes are down and he's lacking confidence. This is telling the audience already, and by not focusing on M first, this is already telling the audience that James Bond here is in for something, he's not in control here.
Yeah.
You see a little look up and then he starts to speak to M, but he's speaking nervously.
So, happens to be 3 a.m.
Now, this is a part of the scene I absolutely love. Bond says to M, "Good evening, sir." M, with sarcasm, and if you notice, he hasn't even looked up to greet Bond once. So there's a couple of things here that I want you to take out of it. First of all, the direction would be clear here to M, or to Bernard Lee. Bernard Lee's like, no. I'm the man, I'm M, I'm the man, I'm not even going to look up at Bond here. So he hasn't looked up at Bond. Now when M comes back with let's say it's a bit of a smart-ass line where he says, well, it happens to be 3 a.m. Have a look at Bond, suddenly loses confidence, and then he goes to look at his watch to check the time, like 3 a.m. Have a look at this.
When do you sleep, 007?
And then, without M even looking at Bond, he hasn't even looked up at him, he knows him so well, as Bond's looking at the watch to check the time, almost like to correct him, to say, oh, it's not 3 a.m., blah, 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 M cuts him off with a line of dialogue. So let's go back, have a quick little look, right from here, and you'll see it in play.
Good evening, sir. Happens to be 3 a.m. When do you sleep, 007? Never on the phone's time, sir.
So, M lets him answer the question. Bond answers it well, never on the firm's time, sir. Very clever. And then M is taking control again, telling Bond to have a seat and pointing to the chair. Now, director Terence Young was famous for hating close-ups, hating the overuse of close-ups. He didn't hate close-ups. He loved close-ups, but he hated them being overused. And Terence Young thought that close-ups should be used to really impact a scene and a moment of empowerment, to really tell the audience this is very important. So he didn't like to overuse them, and it's such genius. And now we don't even need, with an actor with Bernard Lee's power and screen magnetism, you don't need to go and overuse close-ups on him. So we've got him in what I would call a medium shot here. We'll go from here.
Jamaica right off the end, just like that. Right in the middle of the opening procedure.
So to match the shots, Terence Young's gone from a medium to a medium. He's got Bernard Lee in the centre of frame. Now, what's really clever here is, there's a rule called crossing the line. And it's something that is just the cardinal sin of filmmaking you can never do. And if you ever see short films, someone like an amateur when they cross the line, or they're interviewing someone, and a complete amateur when they cross the line. So as we know, M is here. When we cut back to M will be centre of frame. So where Bond needs to be for M's eye line, because M will be looking this way, Bond needs to be either on extreme left, or he needs to be centre of frame. So we've got the chair starting here. The chair comes across here, and he's got James Bond here sitting in the centre of frame, but he's still looking to this way. It works perfectly.
Checked up and Strangways has disappeared. So's his secretary. She was a new girl. We'd only just sent her out there.
Oh, was Strangways on something special?
Well, he was checking an inquiry from the Americans. They'd been complaining about massive interference with their Cape Canaveral rockets. They think it comes from the Jamaica area. Does toppling mean anything to you?
A little. It's throwing the gyroscopic controls of the guided missile off balance with a...
Now, what I love here, guys, in this part, and it shows, even though Connery wasn't a super experienced actor at the time, this is 1962, you can see when he takes the question from M, he looks straight at M, but then he's looking all around. Now, so many of us do this in real life when we're trying to draw on our memory and remember and think of something, we kind of look around. Connery here as Bond does the exact same thing.
Radial beam or something, isn't it?
More or less. $5 million worth of missile aimed at a spot in the South Atlantic. But finishing up in the middle of the Brazilian jungle's bad enough.
Now, in this section here of the scene, you see that M he's getting frustrated, and now he wants his pipe. He wants his tobacco. And the clever direction here is we've already realised that Bond knows what type of character M is, that he's eventually going to smoke, that'll relax him, etc., etc. Because if you notice here, Bond already has his lighter ready to go to offer to M. And he's trying to appease, it's like Bond's trying to tame the wild beast down a bit. It's very clever filmmaking.
Now I'm going to try orbiting a rocket around the moon.
And what's great about this is M completely ignores Bond's offer to light his cigarette.
The American CIA sent a man down to work with Strangways. A fellow by the name of Leiter. Do you know him?
I heard of him, but never met him.
Now, what's interesting here is, more than likely, the director Terence Young and his cinematographer, they will have the camera on, I believe it's going to be, or it was on, a dolly tracking system with a track laid out to this side of the frame. Now, the reason I believe he's done that is it gives him so much flexibility. You show Bond coming in, then all you need to do is tilt the camera around, or completely lift the little caboose thing around, turn it around on the tracks, and you set up from that way. And literally, moving that without having to do a complete relighting setup, you can film from this side of the room and this side of the room. Of course, there could be some fixing of lights just to move slight little things, but overall, by shooting this way and just moving the camera in and out is absolute masterful. Now, even though Bond answers M here, the camera doesn't, if you notice, between the editor and the director, they haven't cut back to Bond when Bond answers the question about, answering does he know Felix Leiter. The focus is still kept on M because he's the important one here giving the information. Where today, filmmakers would just cut, and it's so jarring and so annoying. This is beautiful.
Has he found out anything? Anything important?
You better ask him. You're booked on the 7 o'clock plane to Kingston. That gives you exactly 3 hours, 22 minutes.
Also, with them knowing, looking at his watch, that gives you 3 hours, 22 minutes. This is a man that is on the ball. You know, this guy, he's on it. No little detail passes him by. And that's why the dialogue, backed by the incredible performance here of Bernard Lee, is so powerful.
Armour. I'll have a set of background papers to date delivered to you at the airport in a self-destructor bag.
Now, if you listen to that line, a self-destructor bag, let's go back, have a little listen. Have a listen to this line. This line predates Mission Impossible. Now, what did Mission Impossible really push? This mission will self-destruct, blah, blah, blah. Have a listen to this.
I'll have a set of background papers to date delivered to you at the airport in a self-destructor bag. You can study them during the flight.
Bit before Mission Impossible's time, hey?
I want to know what's happened to Strangways.
Sir?
Take off your...
You can see here the camera's obviously on dolly tracking, like I said before, and it allows now, instead of where Bond entered around here before, we've got, we'll just call him Q, Peter, I'm trying to think of his name, Burton, playing the armourer, we'll call him Q. We've got him here in frame, and what's beautiful is Terence Young, through this simple, very simple shot setup with the tracking and the dolly, he can just pull back and he's got all three men, even though it's a tight little set, a tight room, he's got all three men in frame.
Yeah.
Now, when M here tells Bond to remove his jacket, if you have a look at this section, it's keep a close eye on Bond, because the camera is obviously not on M as a close-up or anything like that. We can't see M talking, but this line of dialogue and the way it's performed is to humiliate Bond. M knows exactly what he's going to do. He knows Bond's got the gun, the Beretta that he's told him not to use. So this time now, he's going to embarrass Bond in front of the armourer, in front of Q. Have a close look. Have a look at the way Bond will play back the line, take off your jacket, and then have a look.
To know what's happened.
Have a look at Bond, look at M, almost like, you're not going to make me do this. It is so well acted.
And the Strangways.
Sir?
Take off
Okay, so now, take off your jacket. Now look at Bond's face, and look who he looks at.
your jacket.
And you see clearly on his face, he's disgusted that he's being humiliated now.
Give me your gun. Yes, I thought so. This damn Beretta again. I've told you about this before.
Now what I love here is this little touch. M's about to say, you tell him. Now M could have just put the gun on the desk, but to bring the character of Q into the scene more, the armourer, the director has obviously told Bernard Lee, M, to hand the gun to the armourer, so furthermore, Bond can be insulted by what the armourer does.
You tell him. For the last time.
It's nice and light. In a lady's handbag.
And you can see the way Bond looks at Q there in absolute, like, disgust.
Stopping power.
Any comment, 007?
I disagree, sir. I'd used the Beretta for 10 years.
He disagrees, but he backs off. He's going to a place of safety, and he's putting his jacket here like, I'm putting my jacket down, and I'm home as well. Yeah, this may be your office, Em, but I'm going to make myself feel empowered by putting my jacket down because he's disagreeing with M. This is probably the little things a lot of people don't realise and see, and this is the masterpiece of this scene in the way it's directed and acted.
I've never missed with a jet.
Yeah, maybe not. But it jammed on your last job and you spent 6 months in hospital in consequence. If you carry a 00 number, it means you're licensed to kill, not get killed.
Also, the dialogue here is setting up like what the books used to have on the books. 00 license means you're a license to kill. So it's giving so much awesome information to people that are not familiar with the James Bond novels and bringing them into James Bond's world.
And another thing, since I've been head of MI7, there's been a 40% drop in 00 operative casualties, and I want it to stay that way. You'll carry the water. Unless, of course, you prefer to go back to standard intelligence duties.
No, sir. I would not.
Then from now on, you carry a different gun. Show your number.
Alta PPK, 7.65 mil.
Again, the camera is just on the trolley. It just moves slightly. It just pulls along here with Bond, and now it's got them both in a medium shot, or you could call that almost a medium 2 shot there. Probably slightly wider, but for argument's sake, a medium shot.
The delivery like a brick through a plate glass window.
Medium wide, M's looking on to these two. M's overseeing things, still showing his authority.
Takes a Brausch silencer with very little reduction in muzzle velocity. The American CIA swear by them.
Thank you, Major Bluewater.
Thank you, sir. All right, sir.
Any questions, 007?
No, sir.
All right, then. Best of luck.
Thank you, sir.
Have a look at Bond's face here. He's trying to parlay confidence, even though we, the audience, can see he's still a bit pissed about having his favourite gun taken away from him. So, of course, cleverly and sneakily, Bond has the Beretta in his little gun box and walks off with it.
007,
Sir?
just leave the Beretta.
And what's fantastic about that moment is when we're on M, we see that M again doesn't even look at Bond when he says it. He doesn't need to. Where today, or in current days, you know, when Judi Dench was M, the camera would be on her, it would be over on her, and it would cut and cut and cut and showing she's the boss, etc. By doing little nuances, by just having M go back to his work, project his voice enough, goes back to his work, it's absolutely showing his authority and still giving Bond a bit of a bollocking. Now have a look at this bit. M doesn't even look up at Bond. He doesn't look up at him. Bond pushes the gun down, and then you watch Bond's face and what he does. See, Bond looks at him to see if M's looking at him, but nothing. M is giving him donuts. 0. Now, I love this bit here. Even though he's given Bond nothing by way of looking at him, we know he's still been thinking about him. He gets straight onto the little scrambler here and tells, well, he passes on a message to Moneypenny. Let's have a look at that.
Oh, it's Moneypenny. Forget the usual repartee. 007's in a hurry.
Again, with Moneypenny hunched over back, the confidence is really gone. M stripped him of that a little bit. Now, what I want to show you guys too, a little bit that I didn't show you, is have a look here. There's a real bit of genius here. When Moneypenny flicks on the switch, she's allowing M's voice to come through. Have a look when she turns off the switch. She wants to flirt and muck around with Bond. Once M tells her off and says, just let Bond go on his way, flick. So it goes from a soft switch to a whack, a whack of the switch. So she's not happy with this either.
Oh, it's Moneypenny.
Soft
Forget
flick
the
of
usual
the...
repartee. 007's in a hurry.
There you go. You see that? Whack. So that's the brilliance of the characters, the direction and everything by just adding little bits of information in by their body language.
Sure.
Now, this is clever here where Moneypenny opens the box and then once she opens it, she realises, they took his gun off him.
Good luck.
You see that little movement of her head. She opens it and then she's like, and she realises Bond's been debollocked. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this first session. Come back and join us next time for the next segment. Till then, guys, keep on bonding and say hi to your mum for me.